Welcome to a special bonus edition of the Monocle Daily on Monocle Radio, brought to you in association with the University of Warwick. For 60 years, the University of Warwick has been championing curiosity, collaboration, and the transformational power of knowledge. As a global hub for research and discovery, the British institution tackles the world's pressing challenges with clarity and purpose. Now, Monocle invited its readers to pose the big questions that they wanted answering. In this special programme, the University of Warwick's renowned academics offer insight on topics shaping the world today, making sense of everything from artificial intelligence to the economics of luxury. Today we're talking technology. One Monocle reader posed a question to Noortje, Professor in Science, Technology and Society. They asked Noortje to consider whether we're designing artificial intelligence to work with us or to replace us. Let's hear from Noortje now in conversation with Monocle's Mitch Parker.
When you look at AI in a quite literal way, so you ask, how has it been defined? How is it described? It's all about machines replacing humans. So artificial intelligence tends to be described as the ability of machines to perform human-like tasks or to perform in a human-like way. So I think one of the challenges today that we're with this legacy, that even in terms of just saying what AI is, we already start talking in this language of machines doing things that are normally done by humans. In terms of how AI is being sold today, that is also really one of the central sort of points. So what is a self-driving car? A self-driving car is the car taking over tasks and responsibilities from the human driver. What's an intelligent assistant? It's a chatbot taking on the role of, customer service agents or sometimes even like therapists. But if we look at how this actually works, what we see is that AI generates lots of work for humans. So I find it very interesting that, again, in the case of self-driving vehicles, a lot of the sort of maps and understandings of the everyday road environment are produced by having workers, often in the global south, annotating video footage of street corners in London. So when we look at the practice of it and what happens when it gets implemented, we see a really classic dynamic at work, which is that labor-saving technology generates more work. And the question then always is, who are the humans and where are the humans who are doing that additional work?
AI has kind of been like a very dominant conversation, I would say, in society in the last couple of years in particular, I guess, with the big names like ChatGPT, for example, becoming almost like a household name. The uptake has been quite fast when those things kind of came online. I've seen friends run to it for every little thing that they're doing sometimes. Is this kind of uptake making us more dependent on, do we become more dependent on machines through something like AI?
I think it's definitely the case that for some people, there are a lot of things in their end practices that they can now automate. That's not necessarily a case of the usual suspects, being the literate ones who take advantage of the new technology. Like, I think there are lots of very interesting cases of also people who may be expected to have quite low tech literacy, nevertheless finding uses for it that make a real difference. And I think that's partly what makes it important and also not strange that we are talking a lot about AI. But at the same time, there are, I think, some very strange sort of assumptions that we make, but also that are made in just general public talk about AI that don't often add up. So, like, on the one hand, this is supposed to make things easier, right? AI is all about delegation, automation as the delegation of tasks. But it's generating so much work for everyone. I mean, it's all this kind of, bringing the phone into the conversation, all the, automated transcripts that you can now, archive, like all this kind of extra stuff, which for me don't fit with the language that is commonly used to talk about AI. Like, it's not about freeing up people. It's also definitely not about autonomy. The AI machines that I encounter in my life are very needy, also in the work that I do as a researcher. The way we need to sort of prepare our data, adapt lots of things in our research design in order to make the AI demonstrate, its great capacity for analysis. So they're very needy machines. And I'm worried that by describing them as autonomous and loyal delegates or assistants, we're becoming a bit complicit in the erasure of all the work and all the invisible labor that all of us are doing to actually make AI work.
Where are we at in terms of governance in AI? Like, is there any kind of movement towards like consensus on if there should be certain rules and things that people have to obey? Are there countries that are kind of doing certain things that other people aren't doing? Like, where are we at in terms of governance and AI at the moment?
There are a number of different things that are important when we look at the political decision making around AI. The first is that, I am really quite struck by the very strong reliance on AI scientists to define and decide what are the risks and what are the dangers of AI. Because, when you look at like the last 20, 30 years, there has been a lot of progress in terms of, saying we need to take seriously the user point of view, the community perspective, in many different areas, like if you look at service design, but also when you look at like local democracy. So it's very strange, I find, that in AI, it's suddenly we're back to the assumption that the scientists somehow know how this is going to transform society and culture. From my perspective, it would be quite obvious that if you're an expert, that makes you less able to see how it transforms the experience and life world of non-experts. And the other thing is the way in which I am really reminded very often about debates around nuclear power and genetic technologies, when all these DNA-based technologies were just invented. And so I think AI is putting us in a very different space from like the web, or when we had this kind of really boom in social media culture 15 years ago. And I think that's what makes it so hard, because AI is everywhere. Like, it's inside your phones, it's inside public services, insurance. I already mentioned therapy. Like, it's everywhere. It's completely in all the intimate nooks and crannies of our lives and of our culture. So it's really intimately transforming our world. And at the same time, I miss the language, and also I think the social and cultural movements that we had when nuclear power was the big thing and when the new genetics was the big thing. So I do think there are lots of really big risks, and we talk about them and they need to be talked about. But we also, need to have an understanding that there is a political choice and a personal choice about, do we want to have these technologies in all these places, moments of our lives?
You're a user living in this ecosystem just like the rest of us are as well. AI is everywhere, like you said. When it comes to AI, are you optimistic about its role in our society moving forward? Or are you pessimistic? Or are you kind of like, as an academic, you have to kind of just sit back and watch?
Some things that I'm really not optimistic about is that I think AI it's fundamentally about prediction. Machine learning based, deep learning based methodologies are all about prediction. Like, what is the next word in the sentence? What's the next utterance in the conversation? Is that bicycle going to turn left or right? And what do predictive technologies need to work? They need a predictable world. They need predictable environments. So I'm very concerned that we're going to get a big push to making social life more predictable in order for AI to work. And for me, that also really takes us completely away from intelligence, which for me is about being able to deal with the unprecedented, being able to take the point of view of a stranger, of someone who's not you. So I'm very concerned in terms of the broad consequences for social and cultural life. But I'm a sociologist, and for me, more interpretive perspective on reality is basically, that's what it's all about. And with AI technology, it's not just calculative. It is always operating also in the domain of interpretation. And this could, it could mean that the very sort of logic of technology changes towards one where, there's this phrase that says every quantity has a quality. And I think often in, the past century, the quantities have sort of overdetermined the qualities. If we can be in a place, or if we could get to a place where machine learning is understood as a qualitative process, a process of qualification, we might get a very different way of relating to technology. So that's the hopeful place to land on that one.
That was Noortje. To hear more from the University of Warwick's renowned team, check out the other episodes in this series at the Monocle Daily page at monocle.com. And do discover more about the University of Warwick at warwick.ac.uk. This was a special edition of the Monocle Daily, brought to you in association with the University of Warwick, the place for life's big questions.